Hello, hello. I am not going to wait for people because this video, this live, will be used as a tool for supporting those who are trying to get more information about what I'm getting ready to share. And so I'm going to go ahead and jump in. First, I just want to say thank you for being here. If you are watching this, my name is LaQuisha Hall, and I can be found on social media at my name, LaQuisha Hall, at Confident Canvas, my artist page, as well as now you can find me at the number four. Hey, Barbara, the number four life project. So I have created another Instagram account. I'm saying another because my friends know that when I'm passionate about something, expect an account or a campaign or a project of some sort to be initiated. But if you are interested in participating in all of the things that I'm getting ready to share, please hop on over to Instagram and follow For Life Project, for the number four. And so I'm here today to talk to you about this project, about why I created this initiative, as well as how you can be a part of it. And I think it's important for us to talk about this, especially now, because September is Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month. And so I am here to share with you. I am a survivor of suicide attempts, a very serious one, my freshman year in college. And I just want to share that I recognize that it is not easy saying that for a lot of people. I am not here to tell anyone to tell their story. That is not the purpose. Some things people are not yet ready to reveal, and that is 100% okay. Some things will never be revealed by some people, and that is also 100% okay. And I just wanted to acknowledge that. Um, I think that in our society right now, there is a lot happening. There is a lot of things that are um, that could be considered egregious, things that can be hard, things that can be alarming, things that can be unnerving, and they're all happening simultaneously. And it can lead a lot of us, a lot of people who may not be as mentally strong, into a dark mental space because of the uncertainty of the future. Hello. And I think it is also important to recognize that there are some people who entered the uncertainty of the world with the heaviness already. And so, coming into a space like the pandemic, the high political tension that seems to exist, the frequent occurrences through social media that are hard, the heaviness of what's happening online in movies and TV shows that we're watching. There's just so much surrounding and infiltrating our communities that's hard and heavy. In addition to that, we're living our personal lives, which may not always be as clean of a pathway as we'd like it to be. And so, while I'm sharing what I'm going to share with you on this live, if you have never encountered suicide personally, if you've never had suicidal thoughts, I just want you to know that being a part of the prevention is a community thing. It is not an individual's issue to deal with on their own. It is not something that's going to magically disappear. It is something that we have to undergird each other on in order to see each other through these hard times. Another thing I want to share is that you won't see suicide attempts on a person. You won't see helplessness or hopelessness physically on a person all of the time. There are signs that you can be aware of and look out for, but a lot of times people will come into a space smiling, seem happy, seem like everything's okay, and the truth is they could be internally falling apart. And so I just want you to be aware that when you encounter people, the things that you say, the way you treat people, um, the way you encourage or the way you include or not include them, all of those things matter, and you don't know how that could show up later in their lives. And I also want you to be aware that you could encounter this issue and have had absolutely nothing that you could have done to prevent it, to make it better, to make it different. Some of the heaviness that people carry, they're just carrying, and it doesn't matter what you say, do, how many times you call them. Sometimes people we love or care for will still take actions that they think are best for themselves, and that is not to our fault or detriment. But it is important for us to do all we can to prevent suicidal ideations, as well as hopelessness in our society, so on and so forth. And so I wanted to start with that because a lot of times when I talk about heavy topics, not just suicide prevention, but also domestic violence, sexual assault prevention, and other taboo issues, if people have not encountered that personally, they tend to say, "Oh, I don't need this," and disengage. And the education is just as important as the application. And so while you might feel equipped to go into a space and support a friend or a loved one with some of these hard issues, you wouldn't really know until you were in the middle of that issue if you were equipped to handle it. And so having this knowledge in your tool belt, um, just as a safety precaution, because you never know when this could enter your life, is just as important as being able to help those that you care for and love. And so, hey, Deborah, hello there. Um, yes, absolutely. That is so important, Deborah. She says interaction or lack of interaction definitely is something to be mindful of. Absolutely. And we often hear a quote on social media that says, check on your strong friends. You should just check on your friends, period. All of them. We don't know who's strong from looking at them. We can only assume, right? And then also, we don't know who's weak from looking at them. We can only assume. And I think it's important that if you love or care from somebody and they come across your mind, it's just natural that you check on them. You don't need to make a bulleted list of strong people in your life and only check on those persons. And so, just want to first give you a bit of background about myself on why I believe that I am equipped and qualified to talk to you about this today. I am a survivor of domestic violence by way of my parents, and they divorced when I was 12. And then I was sexually abused as a teen for 2 years before leaving home, becoming a ward of the state, and fending for myself for a long time. And it was a very hard period of my life that wasn't only traumatic, but it was one that I had to navigate completely alone. I wasn't um, I wasn't confident in talking to people about my situation. I thought that if it was discovered, that it would be the thing that unthreaded my family. And I took that personal. I thought it was my fault. And I carried that secret and that heaviness for so long that it took a toll on me in so many ways. And so I do advocate about telling your story in that regard because it is important to get help if you are in harm's way. Um, I had no idea who I could have told at that time, so I do a lot of advocacy around looking for signs. So as I was growing up, I often found a way to tell my story through other people. So, like, I would find an adult and say something like, "What if you had a friend who?" And I would fill in the blank with all these hard things that I personally was experiencing, but I would say that it was a friend that I had that was going through it so that I could get indirect advice from adults. Now, most of the adults that I talked to told me what they would tell that friend that I had. And I think that it didn't dawn on them that this friend was me. And I think that when we are aware that people are seeking information, support, and help in different ways, that we can probe a bit more and not just answer the questions very matter of factly. And so, and then the advice I was given wasn't always the best. It's important to know how to engage people who are dealing with trauma. They don't always want you to come to their defense and be ready to fight, kill, or harm the perpetrator. They really sometimes just want someone to hear them, and they're seeking advice on how they personally can get better, get out of the situation that they're in, and how they can heal and move on with their lives. And so sometimes the person who comes to you will shut down if you take a defensive stance in defending them. They don't always want defense, but sometimes just an ally in getting help. Um, and so as a teen, I spoke through friends that didn't exist. And yes, oh my gosh, Deborah, it was so hard. But I will say, having so much responsibility as a young person created, I think, a different type of strength in me, which unfortunately I'm seeing in a lot of other young people now. I currently work in the education system, and a lot of what I've gone through, I have seen the signs of that in the students that I've taught, and it's alarming to me. I have used myself as a resource for young people as well as adults, but seeing young people walk around in the way that I did, and trying to cope and trying to be strong and trying to be independent and trying not to tell and all of those things, it can be hard because it's almost like I'm reliving my own experience. And so I take it personal when people try to hurt young people. I take it personal when young people are left alone to fend for themselves, because I know that journey is not easy. And I do believe that they'll come out on top, but the journey's so long before they get to that destination. And so I just, want people to know to look for those types of signs when young people or adults come to you with the friend I have who, and they fill in the blank with hard things. Or if they're not talking at all, if they're very withdrawn, that is also a sign that there may need to be some undergirding around that person. You can also see the opposite of that. So I know that you might be hearing this and saying there's so many things to look for. Really, any irregularity in how people would normally communicate with you is something to just be conscientious of. You don't always have to look for something to be wrong, but just be conscientious of it in your mind that something could be. So they could be over outgoing, um, meaning that they're looking for or seeking validation from other people, maybe wanting to be the life of the party, so to speak, so that they are not ignored in that space as they might be privately. And so it's a lot to look for. It's a lot to carry as a young person. It's a lot to handle as an adult. And I carried my trauma into my adult life. I went to college, I left home. I thought this would be the end of all of my hardship because I was leaving the environment. But the truth is, your physical space may change, but your mental space stays the same unless you actively work on it. And so as a result, I wasn't actively working on my mental space. I was just desperately trying to get out of the physical space. And while I was successful in that, I was not successful in emptying the baggage that I carried mentally. And so as a result, I replayed my trauma over and over again in my head. Even as a young adult in college, I'm on this campus, I'm on my own. I have a job. It seemed like my life should be getting better, but with the replaying of hard things, with the um, kind of disengagement from my family at the time as a young person, it just became too heavy for me to carry on my own. And so I got to a place where I got up one morning and I went to class only with the idea that I would see these people. A lot of them were my friends for the last time. And so I actually put on my favorite dress for like a 9 o'clock in the morning class. And this dress at the time, this in my way at that time of I guess showing signs of needing support, I underdressed in public. And so I had like this tube dress on, 9 o'clock in the morning on a hot day. It's short, I'm tall. It's like all my I just had a lot of my body exposed. It was red, it had a Japanese print on it, and I put my hair in a bun with chopsticks holding it together, and I felt pretty. as pretty as I could be, because in my head, that was going to be my final outfit. And if I were to be found wherever I was going to be found, I wanted to be found beautiful. And so I went to class. I even had at the time, Spice Girls were popular, and so they had a lot of those Skechers like shoes. They had clunky heels. I had my those shoes on with this short dress, tube dress. And I go to class, and I'm disengaged from the lesson. I'm essentially believing that I won't be in class anymore after today. And so I'm talking to my friends, and even I personally believe that my conversation, hey Queen Karen, um, I felt like my conversation should have been alarming to people, but because I was so outgoing and all of that, I just think people laugh at me all the time. I'm funny. But at that time, it was a different type of funny. It wasn't, some of the things that I was saying should not have been funny. And I hugged some people way too long. I went to all my professors' offices and, told them how much I appreciated what they had done for me. They took it as just like I was stopping by their office to give them a compliment. And I had already the day before written out letters for family members. A lot of them were very angry, telling them how I believe they contributed to me not wanting to be here, but that I forgave them and that I still love them. And thank you, Bar. And I made sure those letters were visible on my desk in my dorm room. And I took the bottle of pills out when I got to my dorm room that I had planned to take. It was a fairly full bottle of Motrin IBs. I had already done my research that if I took a certain amount, I should fall asleep and that I could pass in my sleep. And that was my goal. I didn't want to be in pain. I just wanted to leave. And so I put the lock on the door that has a chain in the dorm room, because I believe that if someone were to come in, so you know how it is. I was a freshman at the time. Freshmen would go into each other's rooms and stuff. I didn't want anybody to find me sooner than I could pass. And so I put the chain lock on the door, swallowed all the pills, and cried myself to sleep. And that was it. That was what I thought was going to be it. And so, y'all, let me tell you about my God. Okay, for some reason, my roommate got out of class early that day. She tried to get into the room, and she unlocked the door and knew that I was in the room because the chain lock was on, but she couldn't. When she called me, of course, I didn't open the door. I don't even remember hearing her call, but what ended up happening was, I guess she went to the people who were in charge of the dormitory, and at some point, some way, they broke through the chain and got into the room. I was told I was foaming at the mouth. It could have been like the residual whatever of the medicine, but they called an ambulance. And I do remember, I don't remember everything that transpired, but I do remember, as I was taken out of the room on a stretcher, all of my friends from the dorm room were in their doorways as I was being rolled down the hall. And why that's so significant to me now, it wasn't then, because I wasn't really conscientious of what was happening. But now in reflection, I wish that people wouldn't wait until something's wrong to line up for you as you're being rolled out in pain, right? I wish that these people would have come to the door when they saw that I was hurting, when they saw that I was withdrawn, when they saw that I was underdressed and too loud sometimes and maybe seeking somebody's help, when I cried a lot, when I shared the stories that I shared with some of them about my abuse. I wish it was then that they would stand at the door and say, LaQuisha, we're here. But it wasn't until, it was hard. And I understand also, being a freshman, you might not know what to do for your friend who is what you might consider weird or emotional or whatever. But I think about that in terms of community, how we're all outside with a phone, or we're all outside, just keeping it real, being nosy, trying to figure out what happened because the police are here, the ambulance is here, and all of that. We wait until then to ask the questions. The questions should have been asked before the person got to a point of desperation. And so, anyways, I was incredibly embarrassed to be on a stretcher leaving the dorm. I don't remember getting in the ambulance or what it looked like going into the hospital. I was in and out of like sleep or something. And I do remember waking up with a lot of stuff attached to me in the hospital room. And they were in the process of cleansing my stomach because they saw everything I ingested. And I remember, I was in my hospital room. I thought alone initially, and then I heard someone crying. And I look in the one chair that's in the room, and it was my roommate. And she was just like so distraught, I guess, to see me in that way. And I remember looking over at her, and I didn't say anything initially because I'm not sure where I was mentally. But when she saw me move, she comes over to me and she was just overwhelmed. And first thing she said was, I guess the doctors had kind of talked to her before that moment. And she said, LaQuisha, please, please sign the papers. And I was like, thinking to myself, like, girl, I just woke up. What you talking about? So I guess I indicated I didn't know what she was talking about. So she had it basically explained to me that doctors had shared with her I had to be in a position where I could sign paperwork that would release me when they were finished with everything they had to do to cleanse my body. And that part of the agreement was that I would not try to commit suicide again. And I think my roommate was concerned that I would not agree to that. And so, hi, Kim. It's so nice to see you here, dear. I haven't seen you in a while. Oh my goodness, such a blessing. But I remember thinking in that moment, I'm not signing it because I didn't ask y'all to pump my stomach. I didn't ask y'all to embarrass me, taking me down that hall. I'm thinking in my head like I'm mad at my friend, my roommate for being there. I didn't ask you to come here. Like I wanted to be gone, and I still felt that way even after, um, getting the help from the hospital. But I was in that hospital for so long, y'all, and they were doing all these things to me that were not fun. And so it was at some point I said to myself, to get out of here, I'm going to sign the papers. And in my head, I also thought, what are they going to do if I try it again? There's nothing you can do if I'm successful the next time, right? So um, I do remember one doctor coming in and talking to me around if I wanted to talk about why I had done what I did. And I'm looking at this person like, not to you. Like, you don't care about me. And I'm not taking, you're not going with me back home, back to school. And, at that time I had a complex around family. So I was like, you probably have a family that cares about you. So you wouldn't understand. And so I think I gave them some kind of limited, like I'm just overwhelmed and stressed kind of answer. And they gave me papers that told me how to deal with overwhelming stress that I never read. So I was released from the hospital. I go back to school. I'm still embarrassed. Everybody knows that I'm the girl that tried to commit suicide. So everybody's like tiptoeing around me, talking to me strangely. It was just really weird. Okay. And I regretted doing it, not because I didn't want to do it, but because of how people were treating me and I was unsuccessful. And so I will say that the story gets better, y'all. But I wanted you to hear like the real deal behind the scenes, like how this could look for someone in desperation. And I think I got like a few phone calls from family. I still was uncertain of the authenticity of concern. And but I think I received more help. There was a counselor on the campus who took me in personally as a person. She opened her doors to me anytime I needed to talk. I will never forget her. And I've talked to her post graduation in my successful years. And I used her as a resource until I was able to figure out how to navigate this without her. And when I say this, I'm talking about life. And so what ended up happening was my junior year of college, close to midway through, I went to a friend who also lived in the dorm I was in at the time. This is not the freshman dorm anymore, but I had a friend that went to this college with me from high school, and she didn't seem to be having the problems that I was having. And it frustrated the mess out of me. Every time I saw her, she seemed happy. She had a car. She always looked like she was well. Her hair was always done. Like, I just felt like a little unkept, basically. And she just seemed to have it all together. And so I finally knocked on her door one day and I was like, "Can I ask you a personal question?" And she was so nice. "Oh, yeah, come on in." We had small rooms at the time. So I'm sitting on her bed and I said, "Why are you so happy all the time?" Like, I was so confused. Like, where is your hard stuff? You're not like, is it in here? Is it in your room? Like, I need you to be struggling like I'm struggling. And she asked me this question. I'll never forget. She said, "Well, what do you believe about God?" I said, "Oh, my mom talked about God growing up. I'm saved. I told her I signed the Gideon Bible in the front where he was supposed to agree to believe that Jesus was your Lord and Savior." I said, "Oh, I know I'm going to heaven because I already signed the book." Y'all, naivety, okay? I had no idea that was not the only thing you had to do to like really confirm your faith. But she chuckled a little and she said, "LaQuisha, I want to take you to my church." And so I want to pause here and just say that I recognize that when I've talked to people about this for almost 2 decades now, that the route of faith is not everyone's route to healing. Some people don't want to be associated with faith or God, Christianity, anything like that. And so that is a personal choice. I share this as a part of my story because it's an important part of how I was able to pull through. And so, if you are of the belief that that's not how you navigate life, that's absolutely fine. But it is not fine to discount my journey. And so, God was a part of my journey. I went to her church with some of my inappropriate clothes. This church was very conservative. Everybody had on long skirts, covered up. I'm coming in there, my breasts hanging out, everything. A little bit I got, y'all. Praise the Lord. And so that Sunday, I felt like her pastor was talking to me. I mean, it was incredibly uncanny how acutely specific the things he was saying matched with my life. And I sat there overwhelmed, trying to hold back tears because I'm just like, how does he know this? And it wasn't until my tears did not fall until we got to the end and he did an altar call. And he said, his exact words were, "If you feel that what I just shared you're experiencing or you've gone through and you're ready for God to take your hand and lead you through the rest of your life, I want you to come to the front." And I lost it. And I felt like everybody in there was looking at me, but I couldn't stop crying. I mean, it was like my soul was heavy and my soul was crying. I wanted to not cry, y'all. I'm telling you, like, this was a real feeling because I wanted no one to see me and think that anything was wrong. And I cried so hard. And so I didn't get up. I couldn't get up because all I could see was fogginess from tears. And I mean, they were coming in strong. I was like sobbing. And my friend, my roommate who took me to church, she like put her arm under mine and she said, "Do you want to go to the front?" And I don't think I answered her. I think I might have just like shook my head or something like that. And so I remember her like lifting. So I got up with her. I go to the front, y'all, and I drop to my knees. Like, I was just so overwhelmed. I will never forget that moment, because I was like, God, I'm in a building full of people who are happy, or at least it seemed that way. They were all like my roommate. And I'm the only one in here. I feel like I have nobody. Like, can you be my person? That's basically what I'm saying to God in my head, but I couldn't get it out my mouth because all I could do was sob. And I remember all these people came to the front, extending their hand over me and praying for me. And I think I saw just enough to see that there were shadows of people encompassing all around me in prayer for me. That overwhelmed me. So I start crying harder because I'm like, God, I just asked you if you would take me, and you sent all these people to pray for me. You sent all these people to stand over top of me, just me. Like, it seemed like no one else had went for the altar call. They could have. I didn't see them, but it seemed like everybody was focused on me, and it was the first time in my life I felt seen. I just was overwhelmed with just the thoughtfulness of how the church would come through for me in that moment. And so, at the end, I felt relief. I felt a heaviness lifted off of me. I felt like I could do it, whatever the it was. I felt like I could try one more time. Like, I'm not thinking of suicide now. I'm thinking of, okay, God, He said God is with me. So I'm going to try life one more time with the thought that God is with me. Right. And so, um, yes, the whole time, Barbara, God had my back, past, present, and future. So I left there, clean slate, I believed and felt, and I went about life differently. I changed how I engage with some people. Instead of allowing myself to always think the heavy things, I would go into prayer. I would think about some of the key scriptures that people would give me, because they call me a babe in Christ, y'all. So I was like, oh, I didn't know that I was a babe in Christ, because y'all, I was like, I signed the Gideon Bible, y'all. It's not my first time. But I didn't know scripture like that. I didn't have a psalm that I could hold on to in hard moments. And it was through that church that I learned to hold on to those words that God shared that would encourage my spirit in hard times and things like that. So that was the start of my personal healing journey. And I cannot leave God out of my story, regardless of people's beliefs, because He is a part of mine. But what I find even more incredible is how He has used me since that time. And, I never thought in any of my years, from my childhood all the way through maybe even graduation from that university, which happened the following year. I did a lot of things at that school. I brought my friends to church with me. I started studying the Bible. I started memorizing scripture that would help me. Like, I felt like I was in an upswing. Didn't mean I didn't have hard moments and times, but I definitely wasn't where I was before. And when I graduated, I was like, oh gosh, here I go again at this crossroads of where do I go? Like, everybody else had family picking them up and attending graduation and all that. And I had to figure all that out on my own. And so um a couple of days, and when I say a couple, y'all, it might have been like three days before I graduated from that university, a friend of mine who worked at the university, who also was a member of that church, she called me to her office and she said to me, LaQuisha, I just got this email. I think you should look into it. What are your plans after graduation? So she knew I didn't really know what I was going to do. And so I said, girl, I don't know. I'll read the email. Just forward it to me. So she said, no, I'll just read it to you real quick. She reads it to me in her office. My plan and anticipation was to go to Regent University, which is a Christian law school in Virginia. I had gotten an LSAT score that would get me into the school. It was not the score I wanted, but it was enough to get into the school on financial aid. And so that was going to be my plan. Keep working somewhere and keep going to school. Because technically school was where I lived. I didn't have anywhere else to go. And so But her email, as she read it to me, was an offer of a full-time teacher position in Baltimore City with a salary in addition to a master's degree that would be offered to me for free if I committed to staying in Baltimore as a teacher for 5 years. And so I told my friend, I said, "Ooh, I need to think about that because if I go to law school, I'm gonna have to find a job and a car and transportation." I didn't even have my license then, y'all. I didn't know how to drive. Like I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna navigate another state, which I would have to move to. It wasn't far, but I was concerned about that versus moving to another state with a full salary, a job. I think they offered housing the first 2 years also, and I would get my master's degree and wouldn't have to pay for it. And so, after thinking about it over those 3 days, I decided by the time I walked across that stage that I was going to Baltimore. And still in my head, I'm just a babe in Christ. I'm just trying to figure out my life. I don't know what's ahead. God had the whole thing mapped out, y'all. Whole thing. Like I had no idea that I was going to come to Baltimore and help students who were like me. I had no idea that I would even be a good teacher because y'all didn't want to be a teacher. I didn't want to be an attorney either. I just wanted to fight all the people who had harmed me as I was a child. So I wanted to convict all violent people and abusive people in court. That's what I wanted to do. It was my way of retaliating. And so I was willing to read and do all I needed to do in order to make that happen. But that really wasn't the desire of my heart. And I also didn't want to be a teacher. Like I was like, I don't even know what I would teach. So of course I had to teach English because that's what I got my degree in. So I moved to Baltimore, different culture, all of that. But I came here, y'all, and knocked it out the park with God still behind me. I took in students under my wing, noticed that a lot of girls gravitated to me because I offered them the space to talk. And so I ended up starting a mentoring program called Queendom Tea, and led that for almost 2 decades in Baltimore City, completely free, no stipend, nothing. I just did it because I was passionate about making sure other girls did not go through what I did. And years after that, I had done a lot of leadership things in my school district. Ended up becoming Teacher of the Year. Ended up starting turning my mentoring program into a nonprofit. Starting another nonprofit for survivors of sexual assault and domestic violence. I mean, God just truly used me in a lot of ways, and this was before I even entered the art community. And sometimes when I sit and think about that a little too long and hard, it is overwhelming and brings me to tears because I tried to end that part of the map that God already had mapped out. Like he's like, "Girl, if you don't go sit down somewhere, I got this, right?" And I'm up here like, "No, God, there's nothing ahead for me. There's no future." And whole time he had this whole really nice map laid out for me. Like I am pleased with my life today. And I am grateful that he allowed me to still be here, um, and that I wasn't successful, that somebody broke the chains of that door, and that I was able to allow God in so that he could break the mental chains in my mind. And so I am here to share with you that if you are a person who is struggling today, and I know what it could look like on that side where you're just like, no, no one cares. There's no hope for the future. I don't even know what the future looks like. We've been in a lot of things in the world. There's a lot of things going on in my family, in my heart, in my mind. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm just here to show you a physical living example of what it can look like on the other side. And to further support anyone with that, I have created an initiative called For Life Project. Doesn't require any money. It's only an opportunity for you to be reflective and support yourself in whatever mental hardship that you may have. And so, oh, thank you, Barbara. All glory to God. Yes, he showed off big time for me. I had no idea. So I invite you to visit confidentcanvas.com, which I have up on the screen in front of me. This is my website that houses all things art. Like you'll get there and be like, okay, LaQuisha, I'm not an artist. What do you want me to do? First of all, you are. I'll talk about that later. But I want to do a different type of creative activity with you that you can do in the privacy of your home and not feel overwhelmed with it. And so when you go to the top of the website, even whether you're looking at a phone or a tablet or a computer, you will see a link for events. And when you click on that, you will see another screen pop up. I hope I did it, y'all. Hold on. Did I hit it? Let me make sure I'm hitting the right button. Oh, I'm hitting post. Okay, not the right thing. Okay, when you hit the word events, you will come to a page that looks like this, which has all of the creative awareness initiatives that I lead. And so, as I shared earlier, some of the things that led me to the suicide attempt were domestic violence and sexual abuse that I had encountered in my past. And so I do also do creative campaigns around those two causes, which are highlighted in purple and teal on the page. But September is Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month, and the awareness color is yellow. So you'll see a yellow circle here that has recently been added. And underneath it says the For Life Project. And it gives just a little bit of information. And there's a button underneath that says Join Us. And so when you click that button, oh, wait, hold tight. That's the Instagram account. So if you want to join me on Instagram, this is the account. It is For Life at For Life Project. But I don't want to start with that. I want you to see the actual project page, which is in a drop down under events. It's called the For Life Project in the drop down. And so when you scroll up and see that, oop, I must not have hit it, y'all. It's hard seeing from this direction. Oh, okay, I did it that time. This is what the page looks like. And so there's information that suicide statistics. There's also the 3 projects within the For Life Project, and then underneath it shares my story briefly that I just shared with you. It has a little bit in here that I didn't say here that you might be interested in. I can tell you quickly, this little boy that you see in both pictures was my first mentee at age 16, which was at a time that I was still hurting. But he wouldn't talk to anyone. And I was in the Big Brothers and Big Sisters mentoring program as a big sister to him. He ended up talking to me only. He didn't talk to his teachers or anybody. He would only talk to me. And so this picture was like when I first met him. He's not happy about somebody trying to force him to talk. And this is a picture of where we ended up, where he's smiling and, happy. I really think he liked the snacks I brought. But nevertheless, I learned very early in my life how to connect with other people who were hurting, but I still needed to connect with myself. And so that story is detailed here. And then at the bottom, there is a link to a brief video about some of the work that I've done in the past around suicide prevention. Because while I haven't highlighted this as much in the past as I have domestic violence and sexual abuse, this has been a heavy part of my work over the years. And so there's 3 parts to the For Life Project, and I'll go over those with you now. The first one is under the title, The Letter, and you'll see that under a little yellow envelope. And so what I'm asking you to do in the month of September is write yourself a love letter, a letter that is affirming you of who you are, how you're going to treat yourself moving forward, how you won't give up, affirming yourself. And for people who are watching this and thinking to yourself, I don't even know where to start with that because I can't even talk to myself in that way, there is also a link to templates where you can copy the letter that I've already pre-written for you. Also, this project is for those who have survived the loss of someone they care for, that they lost due to suicide. And so there is also a letter for you so that you're not punishing and blaming yourself and a letter that'll basically help you with moving on and still loving yourself despite of a choice that was not made by you. And so I recognize in this work that we can't just help the victims, but the community involved surrounding the victims. This is not something that is isolated to one person. When someone leaves this earth, it affects a whole community of people, and it's important that we show up for all persons involved, not just the victim. And so there is also a letter there, a letter template for you if you would like to participate in writing this letter to yourself. And once you write it, the only other thing I ask you to do to show solidarity online is to seal it in an envelope with a yellow heart on the back. You can draw it with a marker, a crayon. You can put a sticker there. You can color, just put a yellow heart on the back of your envelope and then snap a photo if you feel comfortable and tag us at For Life Project. We want to show people that they're not alone in affirming themselves. And so that is the first part of the initiative. And there's also a hashtag that you can attach to that called Live Life Love Letter. That's the name of your letter, Live Life Love Letter. And so the second part of this initiative was not actually created by me, but created by the National Suicide Prevention Organization that works, I'm sorry, it's the International Suicide Prevention Association. On September 10th, each year, they host a Day of Light, which is where people globally light a candle at 8 o'clock p.m. their time, and put it in their window to honor survivors of suicide, those that we've lost due to suicide, and to show solidarity with families who are healing from suicide. And so I am actually going to go live at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on that day to read my love letter here on YouTube and check in with you all and make sure you're okay. And I'm going to light my candle live here and pray for those who might be silently suffering. And so I plan to do the Day of Light with you all here on YouTube. So feel free to join me again next week for that. And that's September 10th. The letter you can write anytime in the month. Day of Light is September 10th. And then the third initiative is on September 14th. And the only request is that you wear yellow and share a photo of you online using an affirmation, a statistic, or other important factual piece of information about suicide prevention as your caption. The reason that I'm asking people to do that is because some people might not feel comfortable sharing that they wrote a love letter to themselves. And so, but you would be more comfortable saying, I stand with survivors, I stand with families, I stand with those who are hurting. And so through wearing yellow, snapping the photo, and putting affirming information in your caption, you can be a resource to those who follow your social media. And that will be September 14th, which is the second Saturday of September. That's it, y'all. That's the For Life Project. I believe in affirming ourselves. I love the concept of being a light, especially at night, which is symbolic of being a light in darkness, which is why 8 o'clock p.m. is the designated time. And then I also love the idea of wearing the color yellow, not only because it's the awareness color, but it is a color that symbolizes happiness and freedom and joy. And a lot of people use the color yellow in their art to brighten their art, right? And so I think we will brighten the world through wearing yellow, through promoting suicide prevention. It is important. It is our duty. It is our responsibility, if we care about our fellow man, to do something instead of watch and stand in the doorway as that person's being rolled away to help. And so I hope that the information that I've shared today was helpful. If you need some more specific information, you can also find that here. I have statistics on this page. There's a link to the International Suicide Prevention Association on my website as well. I will be online sharing those who allow me to share with their permission some of the images of people in yellow, some of the envelopes that are sealed in yellow hearts. And I'll also just be online sharing and encouraging all of you. And so I think it's important for us to walk away with knowing that it's important for us to be a light in our community. And so, yes, Karen. Oh, thanks, Barbara. I knew you were going to support. When I saw you log in, I knew you were going to be a supporter. I appreciate you so much. One thing I would like to tell you before we go is that it's at the top of my page, I believe, that there is a death due to suicide every 11 minutes based on the statistics of research done through the International Suicide Prevention Association in 2022. That's a lot of people, y'all, who are silently hurting and feeling like they have no other route to go to live a healthy life. And I almost became one of those 1 in 11 minute people. And so now that I've had many more 11 minutes, I want to spend the rest of my minutes in life helping other people find their time beyond that 11 minutes as well. And so I hope you'll join me. And even if you can't or don't feel comfortable doing any of the specific parts of the initiative for the Full Life Project, I hope that you'll take the time to, at least when you encounter a loved one, a coworker, a neighbor, someone at the grocery store, whomever, that you'll think about how you engage with them, not knowing where they are mentally struggling. And then also keep in mind that suicide is not isolated to just people who are mentally struggling. Sometimes people encounter devastating life experiences suddenly, or sudden life changes that can cause them to feel hopeless, like losing a job or them losing a loved one. Sometimes things just happen. They could have been just fine, but a life experience can push them in a direction of feeling hopeless. And so it's important for us to undergird every person we meet with love, compassion, and grace. You don't have to hug and kiss them, but you do have to be kind. That's all. And also keep in mind that there are people among us who have lost loved ones to suicide who are also struggling. And I think that the post life for them is just as hard as watching the person they love struggle, because people don't know how to help. People don't know how to talk to them. And sometimes people don't offer as much support and help because they don't know how or what to do. And so they also, as a result, can feel empty, sometimes just as hopeless as the person that lost their lives. The survivors of those who commit suicide can also go into a dark space where they also consider suicide. And so we want to make sure that if we know someone who has experienced loss due to suicide or otherwise, that we undergird them as well, because they won't always say, I need help right now, I'm struggling, because they expect us to know, if it's public knowledge, of course, that if they lost someone, they expect you to know that, but they wouldn't expect you to know that they're struggling, and they may not share that with you. So just keep that in mind, and appreciate everyone who joined in the live. And I doubly appreciate those of you who will be watching this. And if you watched all the way to the end, that means you sat through my story, you sat through the statistics, you sat through the explanation of the For Life Project. But I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of yellow in this month and beyond. The goal is not to just promote suicide prevention in September, but to be a more compassionate, graceful person all the time. And sometimes it takes a concentrated effort at a specific time to get people in the mindset that I personally need to do better by my fellow man. So thank you again for joining. I appreciate you. If you have any questions about the project, about what I've shared in the video, feel free to ask in the comments. I will get back to you as soon as I can. but I'm incredibly grateful for your support and hope that you will help me as I try to help others. Thank you. Hi, Red Parrot. Thank you for joining. Thank you all for being here. Bye bye.